All right, so I have hit the stream button. It's been a couple weeks. I've been away. Went to California and went to San Diego the first couple of days of the trip, and went to a conference called Influencer on how to be a influencer. Kind of more on and the kind of expert field, not quite what I'm doing, but it ties to things I have ambitions to do in the future and things that I've been thinking about for a long time, and so hopefully will come to fruition in the year 2020. Then I went to LA for a week to try and see what I could make happen. Didn't really have any objectives, goals. Had some friends I wanted to hang out with, a few places I wanted to visit, hoping to stir some things up, make some things happen. That's not exactly how things played out, but it didn't go poorly either. So, yeah, I mean, I was able to go out there and get a better idea on how to do the trip more efficiently in the future. It was like a first trip of like, I don't know what to expect. I don't know I don't know, who knows. And then got there and was like, okay, now I know how to do this. So now I'm excited to go back to LA in 2020 and take full advantage of all of my new information. All right, heading over to the chat. Majestic Demon. Hi, Sean. Hello, Majestic Demon. Thank you so much for joining in. If you're new to one of my live streams, basically they go for about an hour and try and answer as many questions as I can. Real informal. If there's just me and you, we'll be talking back and forth a whole lot. If there's a lot of people, I'll have to do my best to try and focus a little bit more because I can be long-winded and talk for too long on some stuff. But thank you so much for joining in, and we'll have some fun talking movies. Matt G, good afternoon. Good afternoon to you too. I'm glad to be back. Start to feel like detached from my audience when I go too long without doing these, because this is one of the ways that I kind of stay connected, because there's so many things that I do where it's like I just create a bunch of videos in my office here and just I see this stuff all the time, and then I sit looking at editing software and forget the reality of it. So just actually getting to talk with people and talk movies too much is pretty cool. All right. If you guys have any questions, there's just 3 people watching right now, so you can monopolize my time quite easily, and if you would like to. Fortunately, I don't have anything to like just riff off of new movies this weekend, because it's like Black and Blue that doesn't seem to have a lot of buzz, and then Countdown that I've heard almost nothing about. They didn't even do a press screening here in Austin, so don't have too much to comment on that. But yeah, California was fun the last couple of weeks. Just real neat little experience. Fun to visit. Would hate to live there. It'd be I don't know how these people live in LA. It just seems like it would be a nightmare to live in LA. Just so many people in such a small space. Takes forever to get anywhere, but really cool to visit. I mean, everywhere you go is something interesting. Even in the last week since visiting LA, you just hear, since so many movies take place in LA, they keep referencing the 405, Griffith's Observatory, all these places that you just spend a week there driving around a little bit. You know those places, so it added this whole other layer of intrigue into watching movies since I've been back. Even in Terminator Salvation, they talk about, all right, let's meet up at the Griffith's Observatory. They're like, I know where that is. I've been there. Okay, we got some questions now. Majestic Demon, what did you do on your spare time when you were on vacation? Or what did you do? I don't really go on vacations. I don't know if you're referring to when I was in California. I can give you the rundown. That was more of a work trip, but ill-defined work trip, since it tied so closely in with what was fun for me. That's my whole life now. Everything that's fun and work kind of intertwine a little bit. So I wouldn't call it a vacation I went on. Since I was actively trying to do things that were relevant, would have some sort of positive impact for my YouTube channel. But as for what it looked like, so the first day I was there, I went to the movies to go see Alien for the 40th anniversary in the theaters, and I just publicly stated that on my YouTube channel. So then got to meet a couple fans, which was pretty cool. Monday, I went to my buddy Durbin from Durbania. Came to town. He's from North California. He drove down, and we went to Venice Beach. That's like where Arnold Schwarzenegger was like popularized it, Muscle Beach, and they have all these gyms out right there. And so kind of went where he did stuff. And then that night I went to a YouTube workshop kind of talking about how to do YouTube better, and met kind of one of the guys that I've bought a bunch of his courses, gone through a bunch of his stuff, and actually met him 3 different times in 2 days. It was pretty wild. No clue he was going to be in California while I was there, and somehow I ended up meeting him 3 times in 2 days and got his phone number, which is even crazier. Tuesday, my buddy Durbin, his brother-in-law works at Universal Studios, so he got us free passes to Universal Studios. So I went to Universal Studios from like 9 in the morning until 6 in the afternoon. Then I drove over to the ArcLight Theater in Hollywood and went to a press screening and saw Zombieland 2, which is pretty cool. And was able to sneak my buddy Tyler in. I stayed at Tyler's place. I wasn't supposed to be able to bring a guest in. He just happened to be standing next to me when I was like, hey, is this the press line? And they're like, no. And I had a conversation, and it ended with her giving both of us passes, so he got in even though he wasn't supposed to. Wednesday, I spent the first half of the day making my Zombieland 2 video, editing it, posting it, everything. Then I went to go see Addams Family that night. Thursday, I went to go see a press screening of the movie Waves that it comes out in the next couple of months. And then that night, I went to my buddy Griffin's place and we did a YouTube Q&A and kind of hung out and talked with him a little bit. But like once again, I was watching movies and did that stuff. Friday, I went to Griffin's Observatory, went to Hollywood, kind of drove through it a little bit. And then that night, I went to go see Maleficent 2 at the Burbank 16, kind of the location where John Campea and a lot of those guys have gone to go see movies a lot. I tried to do a meet and greet. Nobody showed up. Kind of sad. Kind of like, yeah, sometimes people can't make it at the date that you choose. So I was hoping I could have met some fans. I didn't. I was unfortunate. And then the next day I left. So it was a lot of, I did fun stuff in there. I went to Universal Studios, but I also tried to do a lot of just stuff relevant to my channel, building connections. I actually messaged John Campea about interviewing him while I was in town, and he told me yes, but we didn't get our schedules lined up, which kind of like, just even that he said yes, that he responded to me, kind of like opened my mind to like, I just need to do a better job planning in advance. People will pay attention to me. People are interested in things like that. And so anyway, that was kind of what that part of my trip looked like. Whoa, we got a ton of questions now. Sorry, I went long on that first one because I didn't have any questions at the moment I started answering it. Matchy, how does Joaquin's Joker measure up to the villains in The Dark Knight in terms of being grounded in the level of effectiveness, believability, and motivation? I have a video where I ranked the Jokers, and so I compared Jokers, Joaquin, and Heath Ledger. You're comparing a character designed for the middle part in a trilogy with no backstory, 5 fake backstories, to a character that it's all about the origin story. I don't know how you compare that. On believability, I think Joaquin's is a lot more believable because it's just entirely grounded as this kind of base level thing. It's meant to be horrifying. It's not to be heroic or have any fun shenanigans. It's just kind of a stark, like, whoa, we're watching this guy fall into depression. Which performance is more believable? You're comparing like an Oscar-winning performance from Heath Ledger to one of the greatest working actors of our time playing the same character and devoting just as much energy to it. Which is a better performance? That's for someone else to decide. Like that's not my thing. I'm not an acting coach. I'm not looking to be someone that's good at that sort of thing. So I'll leave that to someone else to decide. They're both incredible performances. They're both incredible in the films that they're in. Choosing which one's better, I thought one had a little bit more backstory to the character, so that's why I ranked it higher, but it's not. They're just two different things. Heath Ledger didn't have the opportunity that Phoenix had, and Phoenix didn't have the opportunity that Ledger had. They're two different things. Harris, love your channel so much, man. Hey, thanks so much. I appreciate it. I believe you're the Harris that just joined this past week. Thank you so much. I believe this is your first one here. Very cool. Ryan, do you ever plan on getting into the film industry, directing, writing, producing? Is that part of why you went to LA? No. Yes. No. Maybe so. I just read the next one from Harris. He said, news Patreon supporter. Yep. Awesome that you knew. Sorry, Ryan. So I would love to be able to write, maybe direct. If I was, maybe I would like a big production. I don't think that would be very interesting to me. But something like where a lot of studio interference, I probably wouldn't work well for me. I'm very interested in storytelling and writing things. For me, though, as a person, I'm motivated by feeling like I created something today that made progress, and that's what makes YouTube very appealing to me. Is that every day at the end of the day can be like, I created something. Maybe it did well. Maybe it bombed. And I can look at that. I can evaluate it. A couple days ago, I posted my black and blue review. Total bomb. one of my worst performing videos of the entire year. I learned something from that. But I created something. I put something out there that some people appreciated, learned from it. Yesterday, I posted a video with my 2020 preview. That was an afterthought video. I created that video not for my channel. I created it for a live event that I was supposed to go to last night. I told them I could go to it, and then Independent, I got the dates didn't quite line up. I went to go see the Goo Goo Dolls last night. We had tickets for it, so that's what I did instead of the live podcast. I really wanted to be for the live podcast. The wife and I had Goo Goo Dolls tickets. So I made that video for the purpose of the live deal. It did pretty well. It was a nice little video that was successful for me, especially in this kind of window of time where my channel's a little bit on the slower side. So I learned from that. If I were to write a script, odds are no one would ever read it. And everyone that's a screenwriter says you got to write like 10 scripts before you get good at it. And just the way I'm wired, I don't think that would work for me to write 10 scripts. I just want something where I have to feel the forward progress. I'm not singularly passionate about that one thing. I'd rather choose the quickest path of progress, which for me has been YouTube. Where people actually pay attention to what I'm doing. Like I put out a video that you guys recommended about pitching my own Spider-Man idea. 30,000 people watched, 40,000 people watched or something like that. That's pretty cool. I spent a day proposing an idea for a movie and got to engage with people. Then the next day, tens of thousands of them. I write a script. I spend months and months on it. No one reads it. I write 8 more scripts. Finally, I get a little traction with the 9th one or something like that. So that's kind of where I wouldn't, it's not something I've drawn towards. My friends and I have long discussed pooling tens of thousands of dollars together and just making our own little movie. I've got ideas in my head. I thought, hey, what if my buddy Cody Leach wanted to do something like that at some point in time, like write a script together. I'll fly out there, see if he can take 3 days off, and we just bang out a script in a weekend and then spend the next 6 months tweaking it a little bit. You know, I've had a lot of thoughts like that, but it's one of those ones that you just can't half do it. You have to be all in if you want to make it. And I've got a wife, kids, and a life that I really enjoy. And that's why it's not likely. So I went to LA because I went to San Diego for this influencer conference. Someone gifted me basically a course a year and a half ago on social media type stuff. It was really helpful kind of in going full time. And part of it was a free ticket to go to this Brendan Bouchard conference. So that's where I went to California was for that. And it was like, as long as I'm in California, I might as well go to LA. That's the whole style. It wasn't like I was trying to meet up with producers and stuff like that. The people I was interested in meeting up with, shaking hands with, meeting, they're all YouTube people. It's, Christian Harloff, John Campia, those types of people would be the ones that I would be interested in meeting up with, building connections with. And even in my talks about doing a podcast, I'm changing my way of thinking because I'm trying to, I don't know, my thoughts are very scrambled because my brain is so oversaturated with ideas from the influencer conference combined with LA, and then combined with being back and this new energy of having a little bit of time off from my normal routine. So my mind's all over the place. All right, what's our next question here? Very sorry if I'm going too slow on here. Majestic Demon, in your personal opinion, do you think that the Avatar sequels will be the final films of James Cameron's career? Probably not the final films, unless he dies young. I mean, he's mid-60s right now. The Avatar sequels will take him into his 70s, take him to about 70, I think. With his current age, I believe he was born 56, something like that. And so he'll turn 70 right around when the last of them come out. In which case, he'll get another movie or two out. At the pace he puts out movies, I don't know how many more movies. I don't know how relevant they'll be. But yeah, I've said this many times on my channel, but the career of James Cameron is heartbreaking to me because after Titanic, he just went off to Pandora. And that's, even if these movies are great, there's 20 years of stories he didn't tell because he was stuck in Pandora. And that's many of you watching right now weren't born when Titanic came out. So James Cameron's only put out one movie in your lifetime. This is the guy that invented Terminator, did 2 of the best sequels of all time in Aliens and Terminator 2. True Lies is one of the best action movies of all time. And we're not even to the fact that he did Titanic and Avatar back-to-back top grossers of all time. And in 20 years, he's only put out one movie. That's heartbreaking to me. Matchy, anyways, they could lazily try and add the Joker to the DCU. The Joker takes place in 81. Batman v Superman in the Waynes are shown die in 81. I'm not saying it's a good idea or anything like that. I don't know. I think it would be a lot of work to try and explain why Joaquin Phoenix's 46 years old in 1981, and Jared Leto, who is basically the same age as Joaquin Phoenix, but looks 20 years younger than Joaquin Phoenix, looks the age he looks in Suicide Squad in 2016. There's some way that they could do it, but I don't think it would be very wise. And I think they're figuring that out, that there's standalone stories that are loosely connected seems to be what they're aiming towards right now. And I think they're making a lot better movies because of it. Like, if you look at their run right now of Aquaman, Shazam, Joker, no efforts to tie to one another really, like just loose Easter eggs in the two that are actually DCEU, and they've been better received by people by quite a bit compared to like Justice League. And yeah. Ryan, I'm wearing the exact same shirt right now. Well, if you're wondering what video I'm going to shoot next, this is a hint right here as to what's coming next. Right after I finish this live stream, that's where I'm headed. Halloween episodes of The Office Ranked coming tomorrow morning. Matt G, oh sorry, my bad. I didn't mean to say Dark Knight trilogy in the first question, as in Phoenix, Joker versus Bane. I guess you mean Dark Knight Rises. I mean it's the same answer as to how I would compare Joaquin Phoenix's Joker to The Dark Knight Rises. It's the same exact argument as I said about Heath Ledger. Christopher Nolan, I thought, did great work with the characters that he had. I mean, his Talia Ra's al Ghul, I think, is great. Bane is like 90% great. The final 10% there in the twist, I don't think added anything, but he still works. I don't think they ruined Bane with the twist. I just don't think it was a great final 10% with the character. Talia al Ghul, I think, was a wasted character. But for the most part, Christopher Nolan did a really good job with what he did with his characters and making them interesting and different. But so did Todd Phillips. But also Todd Phillips got a movie where he spent 2 hours on the character development of his villain. Compare that to 3 villains, 4 villains, or whatever in Dark Knight Rises. Todd Phillips got a lot more time. Jackson, Riddler is my favorite DC character. I've always tried to think who could be a good fit. I've never thought of Paul Dano, but they announced it and I said, wow, that is perfect. Yeah, what I like about Paul Dano is that he's one of these guys that for 10 years people have been like, this guy's really talented, but he hasn't moved into the A-list yet. There's not like the role that the general public associates with Paul Dano. And that's what I prefer for comic book castings. I've got a few issues with Robert Pattinson, and I'm as pumped as anybody. It's not a cynical questions about him. Just I like Batman to be bigger than me, and he's not. And then I guess I probably should qualify some of that. I've also gained a lot of weight over the last 4 years, so I probably could loosen up a little bit on those standards. But my knowledge of him is he's always been pretty skinny. I don't like a skinny Batman. Second one is that he's associated with Edward Cullen. That's not an acting criticism. That's not he's stupid. He was a shiny vampire. That's not what I'm saying. But he is associated with a big character in the popular culture, and I don't want to see Edward Cullen as Batman. That's like a lot of these characters, I just don't naturally go towards wanting an A-lister. Like I was also casting Ben Affleck. I see Ben Affleck more so than I see Bruce Wayne. And I thought that he did a good job, but I prefer that I just see the character. When Christian Bale was cast as Batman, he'd been well known as a great actor for 20 years. When he was a child, Steven Spielberg cast him in Empire of the Sun. And then all throughout the 90s, he did these indie films. And starting around the year 2000, he started going a little bit more mainstream to try and make his way to the A-list. And so then he's in Shaft. He's in American Psycho, was a little bit more broad release. Still indie, but more broad release. Reign of Fire, Equilibrium. And so he kind of expanded with the sorts of things that he did. Then he gets cast as Batman. He's launched into the A-list. And while he had a long career, you didn't associate Christian Bale with any one other thing. And so Paul Dano, back to what you're saying, he's a great actor, not associated with the other things, and not cartoonish. Like, Jim Carrey is the Riddler. You see Jim Carrey doing a Batman villain, you don't see the Riddler. So I much prefer to see the character, the Riddler, from a great actor than Hollywood personality on screen. Oh yeah, and with a Riddler skin on it. David Patterson, following is the only Nolan movie I don't love. I know people have said that The Prestige, Interstellar, Dunkirk, Insomnia, and Dark Knight Rises aren't great, but I love all those movies. I mean, every single one of those movies you just listed, I can tell you someone that thinks they're great. Other than the following. The following was made on a shoestring budget. So the fact that you don't love it is not surprising. That was literally the first movie he ever made, self-funded. He didn't have his full bag of tricks. And all of his movies are interesting. And therefore, on my ranking, I have The Prestige, I think, as last. And people thrashed me for that because they love it. My buddy Griffin that I hung out with a bunch last week in California, he loves The Dark Knight Rises just as much as The Dark Knight. And a ton of people, Dunkirk, Interstellar, both of those, a little bit polarizing, but people love those movies. Some people weren't crazy about them, like the third act in Interstellar didn't click for some people. Other people loved it. Dunkirk, some people thought that it wasn't character-based enough. Others, like myself, loved that it was very visceral, present in the moment. It was about the experience of being there in these three settings, cleverly using time in an interesting way to keep building tension. I loved all of that. So that's what makes him such one of these great directors, is that even the movie that besides the following, all of his movies, someone loves it. A lot of someones love it. And even the critics, they're like, he tried something that I don't think worked. But it's failing forward. It's failing interesting. Oh, got lots of questions. Got to talk faster. Majestic Demon, which of these two films do you think will be the most divisive film of the year based off the Rotten Tomatoes scores? The Lion King or Maleficent Mistress of Evil? Oh, Lion King. Maleficent Mistress of Evil isn't interesting enough. No one loves it enough. People are like, I thought that was a little bit better than the first one. But no one went into it expecting great cinema or anything like that. It's just kind of Whereas The Lion King, a lot of people, strong emotion from their childhood of watching The Lion King, favorite animated film or just one they've been watching for 20 years. And then they went to go see the new one, and either they re-experienced that in a new way, or they're like, this is lifeless and dead. There's not a lot kind of in that middle space. It either clicks with you, or there's no emotion. It's a emotionless repeat of what I've seen before. So I think The Lion King, without question, is going to be the more divisive one, just because no one has strong enough opinions on Maleficent. Even people that hated it went in probably thinking, I don't think I'm going to like this, and then they didn't. It's just not stirring big enough anything from anyone. And no one, comparing the first Maleficent to the original Lion King, I mean, Maleficent's that was kind of interesting, whereas The Lion King is this highly revered film, which naturally pulls out more energy from people. Jackson, your package was delivered, by the way. I think you'll love the stuff. Okay, if you sent that to my P.O. Box, then I'll actually drive out this afternoon and check that out. I actually got a couple packages, so I might have a box opening soon. Harris, True Lies. True Lies is actually, I watched True Lies at a double feature at a drive-in movie theater the summer that both those movies came out. Saw Lion King first and then walked over and watched True Lies, one of the first rated R movies I saw in a theater setting. David Patterson, according to Wikipedia, Joker is the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time. Yeah, it crossed Deadpool 2 a day or two ago. So yeah, it's the number one. It made it happen. David Patterson, and it's still going. It's still making great box office still. I think it's going to be number one again this weekend, in which case, $1 billion Club is definitely a possibility, and it's going to beat the previous winner by a lot. David Patterson, what makes two of the top 5 R-rated films about killer clowns? Yeah, it's interesting the way that works out, because you wouldn't naturally think that killer clowns would be... It's such a specific thing to be top 5. But somehow, killer clowns seem to be appealing. And I don't even know what that is. I don't know why it happened to work out that way, that of all the films of all time, killer clowns are the R-rated movies that just pop above the rest. And it's such a narrow genre, too. It's not like there's a ton of R-rated killer clown movies. There's only a few, and they seem to do really well when they do come out. So I don't know what that is. I mean, not necessarily the killer clown being the key piece, but the source material being apparently more beloved than I think people realized. In it was just, it's not even Stephen King adaptations. It specifically, it is by far the most successful Stephen King adaptation. And like on this whole other level when it comes to like R-rated stuff. I mean, just dominated. And then Joker, they put Joker in Suicide Squad, and it just made a killing at the box office, even though the general public doesn't really know what the Suicide Squad is. The movie wasn't well received at all. It was following up after Batman v Superman, which wasn't well received, and it just killed it at the box office. Like Suicide Squad, despite how much people don't like it, made a ton of money. A lot of that because they put the Joker right there in the trailer, so people apparently love them. Harry, looking to get a new 4K TV. What's the best company in your opinion? I don't know at all. That's not my expertise. I don't have a 4K TV. I really have no expertise in that regard, in TVs or anything like that. I'm not a tech guy, really, getting into the specs and specifics or anything like that. I've just never been that person. I never had the money to flippantly buy comparative televisions. The TV I have upstairs, like I literally bought that used for $50, and I might get a new 4K TV soon, like Black Friday sales or something like that, just because that TV is getting bad enough that I can't really watch movies in here properly because it's too dim of a TV. Because of that, I might get a new one, but I'm not typically that person. Matt G saw Metallica S&M 2 concert last week in a theater. Pretty good. Better plot than the Dark Phoenix. Brutal. Jackson, better performance. Pitt in Astra or Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm just not... I'll say it over and over and over and over and over and over again on my channel. I'm just not a better, like actual ranking of overall quality guy, acting acting critic. That's not who I am. That's not the thing I'm ever going to be good at. So I'm never going to have good answers to that unless someone gives a specifically stilted performance. I was very positive on both Ad Astra and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I appreciated the cool guy personality in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I enjoyed Brad Pitt actually acting and not just kind of doing his normal swagger in Ad Astra. So I'm just not one to pick between things like that. I'm not the right guy to do something like that. I enjoyed both of them. Matt G was really annoyed that Jay and Silent Bob 2 was only limited release. Why do you think they did that? Probably because they don't think they could make money if they did a wide release. If they thought they could make money the traditional route of like, let's do a bunch of marketing and let's throw this out there, they would have done that. But they probably know that it's very much a niche audience. It's not kind of the heyday of Kevin Smith, Skewverse or Skew or whatever. How do you say that? He built a bunch of credibility real quick in the late 90s doing Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, and then Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And so he just had a whole bunch of nerd credibility that they could put out this deal focusing on his stuff. Jump forward 20 years, and there's just not as much immediate demand for it. There's the hardcore fans that might be interested, but it's just not a broad appeal type thing. And Kevin Smith is really well liked in nerd culture, but it doesn't necessarily translate to his movies really all that much anymore. So he's an oddity as a filmmaker and all of that stuff because people love him. They don't necessarily love his movies that much. It's really kind of strange. Like none of his movies in like 10, 15 years have made that much of a dent in a broad sense the way that his stuff in his first 10 years did. Majestic Demon, what's your thoughts on Hook? For me, it's my personal favorite Spielberg film, but I understand why a lot of people don't like it. So, I mean, that was a big part of my childhood. I actually still, to this day, have a bunch of the toys for it. Some of them unopened. Not wife, didn't know. Mother, sister, and I collected toys back in the day, and just in case they'd be worth value. So I still have some containers with unopened Hook toys. And then I had other ones that I opened as well. And, watched it a ton back in the day. I think I've rewatched it within the last few years and enjoyed it a bit. It wasn't one that just was like a knocked it out of the park great film for me. It does some things really well, and then it really struggles with its tone, I think, trying to figure out where exactly in this mix of it's for the whole family, but it wants to have serious stuff, and I don't think it blends all those quite right. But I haven't given it a proper viewing for a movie review ever. So, take that with a grain of salt. But that's my natural implications of that one. Jackson, would you consider Dafoe or Pattinson to be more of the lead of The Lighthouse? Pattinson is the point of view character, so he's the lead. But Dafoe is in a very large percentage of the film. It's not like, 80% one and 20% the other. It's a movie told from the perspective of Pattinson as he's on this lighthouse interacting with Dafoe, and tensions start to build between them, some of, at times, friendship, frustration, and then as their things unfold that cause more tension grows, but it's from the perspective of Pattinson, so he's the would be the one that I would say is the lead, but it's both of them are very prominent throughout the film. It's just, we're following Pattinson as he does all this stuff and see it from his view. David Patterson, at the end of the year, are you going to rank the best movies of the decade? I'm going to do a video like that, yes. First week of January, I'll have a couple of decade videos. I don't know if it'll be best of. That's just not my thing. But I might have to do that. That's the language that people like. But I'm not a fan of best of. I prefer favorite. I'm just not a best of person. Recurring theme in this live stream. Majestic Demon, which of these directors would you say is best? Everyone wants to know my take on the best. I'm not a best person. James Gunn, J.J. Abrams, or Taika Waititi, based purely on the amount of things I've seen and things that I've enjoyed from them, I would have to go with J.J. Abrams. I haven't seen enough Taika Waititi. I haven't seen like his smaller indie ones yet, and so I've just seen JoJo and Thor Ragnarok. And James Gunn, I've seen Super and his Guardians movies. So based off that, I would have to go with J.J. Abrams. Ryan, have you ever done work with Collider? No, I don't know anyone at Collider. I've never interacted with anyone at Collider. I have no connections to Collider. Natty, what are your top 5 actors right now? I'll go with favorites. I won't take that as best because I still do not do bests. I do not think that way. That is not my thing at all. Not best movies, not best actors, not best is not I'm not that guy. Top 5 actors right now. I don't know. Chris Pratt. I don't like to pick favorites. I don't like as much as I do lists, and so people I think associate me with picking favorites. It's just not my thing at all. Tom Cruise. I think you always have to have Tom Cruise in there. Bradley Cooper. Bradley Cooper's done a lot of blockbuster and acty stuff. So that Robert Downey Jr. was great in that small Endgame movie I saw earlier this year. And then always Stallone. I really don't keep a list like that. So I'm spitting out names of some big actors that I really enjoy. I don't even think it's a good list. So I don't stand by that list at all. But there's some names of people that I enjoy. I'm just not good at coming up with lists like that off the top of my head. And I don't keep lists like that. Jackson, what would you guess will be your number one best and worst this year? What? All of these questions are best and worst. Every single one of them. I repeat, that is not my strong suit. What do I think will be my number one best of the year? Let me look at my list. What do I have right now? No, not that one. Movies ranked from this year. Right now, I have my top 5 for this year are Joker, Toy Story, Endgame, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Dragged Across Concrete. Those are my top 5 right now. What do I think by the end of the year will be there? It looks like Joker. Looks like probably Joker. Unless JJ really surprises me and blows me away with Star Wars, maybe he will. I don't think the pieces are in place to do that, but maybe he will. So I guess I'm going to guess Joker. Right now at the bottom of my list is The Fanatic and Escape Plan 3. The Fanatic's probably going to stay at the bottom. Majestic Demon, do you think you'll do another end of the year stream ranking of every movie you saw this year? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I believe January 1st. I will do that. It'll be my ranking of every movie that I saw this year. This year it's looking to be about 130 movies, but absolutely I will be doing a 4 or 5 hour long. It'll be long. It'll be a really long ranking, but absolutely January 1st I'll rank every 2019 movie I saw in the year 2019. And hopefully this year I can maybe do a little bit more, I don't know how to phrase it, but production value for it with some more graphics and stuff like that since I'm full-time now. But 100%, yeah, that's happening. Matt G, are you a fan of the Police Academy franchise? I've watched, I think, all of them except the Moscow Mission, whatever the last thing they did. I think I've watched all of them besides that one multiple times. Back in the day, I watched them. They're not movies I ever rewatched, though, or want to go back to. So I wouldn't say I'm a fan, but I've seen all of the classic era ones. Dave Hutchinson, I rewatched Memento last night. It is probably my 3rd favorite Nolan movie. Yeah, that's one of the movies that really got me into deeper cinema. Or, as Scorsese would say, just got me into cinema in general. Right when I got into indie films and started to go to art house cinema, stuff like that, Memento came out, and my buddy was like, you got to see this movie. It's only playing at this one theater in town. It plays backwards. You got to see it. So I went and saw it in the theater, and then I was like, this is awesome. So I took a friend of mine to go see it, and was like, you got to see this movie. So, you look at my group of friends, a bunch of our entry into deeper cinema was Memento. That movie was huge for us. And so then, as also a lifelong comic book fan, was like, the guy doing Memento is doing Batman. This is going to be amazing. I mean, I was a very early adopter before Batman Begins came out. I was like so pumped for that movie because I was such a big Memento fan. That movie was so important to me. And anyway, there's my little story on that one. Jackson, Andy Bernard's storyline is very similar to Joker's. Changed my mind. No reason to change your mind. That's a brilliant observation. I lost my place. Dear Patton said, I tried out the VR Avengers damage control and it was amazing. It felt real and felt larger than it actually was. I don't know what that is, but it sounds amazing, and I would love to experience something like that at some point in time. I don't know that I've ever done a VR deal. Jackson, do you think you'll start seeing feature films released as VR? Ever, sure. Will there be some experience that they'll try to create in like Las Vegas, LA, and New York City, wherever like Six Flags and Universal Studios, and will they try to discover something like that? Probably somewhere they'll try and do that. It just becomes such restrictive technology that's really expensive. You buy one movie projector and you shoot it up on the screen versus having to buy 200 VR kits. It's just the cost to be able to do that is very expensive. Likewise, to make what you're talking about work, to film that, you have to film so much more footage. You have to render so much more CGI. The effects have to be shot from so many more directions. It just becomes so prohibitive, cost prohibitive to do any of it. Any piece inside of it is prohibitive. So I just don't know how they would ever do that. Because you even think, if you do the movie, what are you even looking at? Because if it's footage, if I'm doing this, you have to film all of that. So it has to be then CGI rendered with the footage you shot. That's so expensive to do. Matchy, you think comic book movies eventually fall from grace as many other genres have before Westerns dominated in the 50s and then eventually fell out of favor? It's tough to say. I mean, in one sense, yeah. I mean, I don't think that they'll be the dominant force forever. But it's tough to know what would be next. And even understanding why Westerns went out of style. Westerns were adventurous escapism. That's what Star Wars was. That's what the action movies of the 80s and 90s were, and that's what the Pirates of the Caribbean movies were 10, 15 years ago, and that's what comic book movies are. They're adventurous escapism. In the 50s, you could not do a convincing comic book movie the way you can now. As soon as special effects made it possible to make that or adventurous escapism, it's dominated for the last 20 years. It started really around X-Men, Spider-Man, Blade kind of laid some foundation, but they've been massive hit makers for 20 years now. And that's right when the technology got to the place to where you could do it convincingly. And Westerns have, it's not like good Westerns haven't come out recently, but they're not, they don't offer as big of a thrill, and therefore they've become more kind of dramas when we do them most of the time. But you look back in the day, and they were the adventures. So it's tough to say what would replace them. I mean, I can't imagine that they'll say as popular, but that's what people have been saying for 10 years, and it's only gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. So who knows? It's so difficult to predict because they do just keep dominating. And these are characters that have lasted 80 years. We're approaching 100 years old when Batman and Superman were invented. And so the characters have resonated with people for a long time. They're multi-generational. They touch into some deeper human emotions. And that's why they've lasted. It is a form of modern mythology, classic storytelling, the stuff Joseph Campbell's written about with the hero's journey. That's what this stuff is. That's what Star Wars is, and that's why they seem to keep working. That's what Harry Potter is. That's why they keep resonating with multiple generations for long periods of time on such a broad level. In light of that, I don't know, maybe the genre won't dip. Jackson, do you ever have videos demonetized, then you can't figure out why? I don't, not really. I don't use bad language, and so I don't get into real crass stuff. Any of the things that kind of trigger, I don't get into political things very often. I don't have very many demonetized for that reason, that they're pretty clearly movie reviews. I'm talking about movies, and I'm not going into anything controversial. So my spoiler review for Joker got yellow monetized, so restricted ads run on it. It's a video where I was talking about a white man that went crazy and started shooting people in the year 2019. Okay, I understand why YouTube caught that one, and it fit in line with kind of the narrative that runs in my head of how YouTube works and what they're looking for. I don't normally touch on the controversial stuff, so they don't normally go after me. I made a long video where frequently we use using trigger words about triggering subjects in the year 2019. So I get it. So I do pretty. One of the reasons I do pretty well on YouTube is because I just don't go into controversial territory. Matt G, MCU gets rebooted in 2060. Maybe even sooner than that. Majestic, I'm not excited for Birds of Prey next year because of the trailer. I'll probably see it because it's Ewan McGregor's in it, because I love Ewan McGregor so much. Yeah, I mean, I'll of course be there opening weekend, and I'll have a ton of videos related to DC content that weekend. I'm not feeling it. The initial pictures they put out, the trailer, just has such a weird cartoonish vibe to it that I don't really know what they're going for. David Pedersen, Sean Chandler videos in 2016. All 482 MCU movies ranked from worst to best. Let's see, 2060, so that's 40 years from now. Right now, if you do 3 per year for 40 years, it's 120. I think we'll only be at about 150 MCU videos. So all 152 MCU movies ranked from the worst to the best. Natty, am I the only one who thinks the movies in 2020 don't look as interesting as past years? I don't think you're alone. I've been looking at my on my flight back from California, I did my first draft of my plan for 2020, and then obviously I did this preview video a couple days ago, and a lot of that was coming from having done the research, made it kind of easier to do it because I looked into so much stuff already. It doesn't have as many things that are just like, oh wow, that's awesome. Even like you look at some of the months like December. We've been having Star Wars movies every December or, some big thing. It's not that. It's like an experimental year for the MCU. It's not a Spider-Man movie. We do have Wonder Woman. We have Birds of Prey, but we don't have like Batman. We don't have Superman. So yeah, it's a weird year. As a guy that talks about movies and depends on movies being big hits, makes me a little bit nervous. Got to be clever in my how I do things. Dave Bett is in, but we are getting another Nolan movie. We are indeed getting another Nolan movie, so that is a high point that I'm excited for. I'll probably review all of his movies leading up to that throughout the summer. So starting about June 1st, start reviewing, starting with the following, all the way up to Tenet. Should be fun. Matt G, thoughts on Scorsese saying comic book films are not cinema? I've been waiting for this one. I've been thinking about should I do a video on it, and then by the time I really had thoughts on it, I was like, there's too many people commenting on it and too many people getting frustrated, and I don't want to be a part of the noise. What's my thoughts on it? His initial statement that they're not cinema is just kind of ignorant. It's a weird statement to make. Wherever you're kind of going with the statement, it's inherently snobbish to say that you don't make cinema like I make cinema, therefore you're not cinema. That's a goofy thing to say. Cinema is not defined as high art. Cinema is a movie that shows in theaters. It's like you just can't. Like what he's saying, that is snobbishness. That's when people start like, oh, these elitists. It's comments like that. And then then Francis Ford Coppola joins in and just says even more ignorant statements about they're despicable. I mean, I haven't even watched. They're just despicable. And then Scorsese qualified his statements. Finally, his third round of statements, he was like, "It's a different kind of cinema." And my problem is that the Marvel movies are training audiences to expect one specific thing from movies, and it's this roller coaster ride, and that's not what I've been making. That's not what this other stuff is. And so it hurts these other movies that are designed as kind of slower, deeper studies. I mean, it's something like that. This statement, this third statement, is a very important statement that got lost in the ignorance of his first two statements and Francis Ford Coppola's stupid statement. They have a very good, important point, which is that we're getting so used to cinema is blockbuster that everything else is getting squeezed out. And there's fewer and fewer movies. And I think that that's true. The people are voting with their dollars as to what they want. And that's the nature of, that's always kind of the nature of things of, the market determines what people want. That's what you get more of. And there's more demand for entertainment than there is for high art. That's always one of the struggles out there. And I don't see him proposing a solution other than Marvel is bad. And that's not a solution. That's an ignorant critique. Marvel making money also funds a bunch of stuff. It gives the money for them to make experimental stuff. When comic book movies a big hit, the studio has more money to experiment more. Now, you can critique the studio for not experimenting more. That's on them. But Endgame raking in a ton of money into bringing people into the theaters is good for theaters. So I wish they'd made. I wish their focus was more on the important part of their statement, which is how do we make sure that there's still a place for high art cinema? That's a valid point. Or offer a solution to it, or put something like that. But that's not really what they did. Majestic Demon, I'm not excited for Frozen 2 for one reason. Disney does not have a good history of making sequels. I don't know how many legit sequels are in the Disney canon, though. Wreck-It Ralph 2, I mean, the direct-to-video like Aladdin 2, Lion King 2, those aren't really sequels, and so that like the number of actual Disney sequels is limited. And if you factor into it the change of regime 10 years ago with kind of the overlap of Pixar and Disney, Pixar's got a pretty good track record with sequels. So I'm not. It's tough to be too nervous about it. And you look at all these other companies that they have; they've got plenty of good sequels in the MCU, and that's Disney. So I wouldn't be in the year 2019. I wouldn't be nervous for that reason, because it's not a sequel like what a sequel meant in the 90s or early zeros. So I'm not nervous for that reason. Jackson, I saw Austin Alamo Drafthouse on the top list of movie theaters in the U.S. That must be cool to have that place. You see most of your movies. Well, I don't know that I see most of my movies there, but that's where I see certain sets of movies. Yeah, I mean, it's just a really cool movie theater chain it's a movie theater chain by like cool movie fans. So I almost never buy a ticket to go to the Alamo Drafthouse because it's not near my house. The press screenings from one particular PR company are there, and then Fantastic Fest was there. So that's why it might seem like I go to Alamo Drafthouse a lot. I almost never I don't buy a whole lot of tickets for Alamo Drafthouse. Like I saw Dragged Across Concrete there, but that's because that's the only place it was playing. Once again, they play cool movies, whereas Cinemark does not, is often. But yeah, they like before the movie starts, they put up a bunch of like cleverly constructed like novelty clips of stuff that's interesting that you probably haven't seen before, and then they have these pre-movie things where they're like, don't talk or text during the movie or else, and then it's always funny, and it's a clip from a movie obscure thing that's hilarious to watch it, and it's like, don't talk during the movie or you'll get eaten by a dinosaur, and then they show a dinosaur for some obscure movie eating someone or something like that. So it just people that really have their finger on the pulse of what's cool in regards to movies, and it all started in Austin, and now they're spreading out across the whole country, or across the United States. So, but yeah, they're a cool little chain. Jackson, okay, hear me out. Rob Lowe as Reed Richards. I don't know. I've seen him too much on Parks and Rec recently. I need to see him again. And what does 50-something-year-old Rob Lowe look like doing something that has both the humor and the drama to it for me to be able to balance it out? Majestic Demon, have you seen the movie Overlord? It is a hilariously bad movie. I would not call that movie a hilariously bad movie, so I don't understand your take on it, so I do not know how to comment. I just thought it was an interesting little World War II zombie movie, so I do not understand your take on it. David Patterson, I like to do casual screenwriting in my free time because I enjoy it, but I want to go to film school right now. I'm writing a time travel story inspired partially by Back to the Future. See, I've done a ton of that. I've done a ton of like freeform, just fun writing of scripts throughout the years. Not really recently because I've just been too busy, but when I was young, I wrote a ton of ideas for stories, and now all my free time is eaten up by YouTube channel type stuff that I can't do too much more with it. So, but yeah, I've always enjoyed coming up with little stories inside of my head and writing little notes down. Majestic Demon, are there any franchises you think have been going on way too long? For example, Fast and the Furious franchise. Franchise is going on way too long. Let me see. What do we have? In Fast and the Furious, I enjoy that form of bonkers. I think there'd be wisdom in them just being like, let's make 9, let's close it out. Like, it's been fun. We're still making money. Let's land this thing. And because it's been a machine for 10 years now of just, we're planning the next 3, we're doing the next, and just cranking them out. And it's not about, hey, we've got a great idea, let's do the next one. It's about, these keep making money, so let's put another one out. And so closing it out, I think, would be worthwhile. But I mean, at this point in time, the franchise has just kind of lost its entire focus. So it's all about just creating spectacle entertainment. So, but I mean, that would be one that would make sense. See, what I'm trying to think. What are the ones that are just going on where they just keep putting out the? I just looked at all of next year's movies and. I don't know. Off the top of my head, after I've been talking for an hour, I don't have something coming specifically to mind. What have I seen even recently? That was just like, I don't know. I'm struggling to come up with one at this point in time because my brain's a little bit in scatter mode. What are some examples that could potentially be in that category? Because it feels like we get so many I mean, I think it's, I don't know. Maybe it's more the profit-driven model than the specific stories that are bugging me. Just when so many just feel like they know they can put another one out and make some money. They greenlight the sequel. Oh, we had a great opening weekend. You're greenlit for a sequel. That stuff's the stuff that probably annoys me a little bit more so than any specific franchise at the moment. Like it was weird to me, like when I watched Escape Plan, and by the end of the movie, you're setting up a sequel. Like, how did you even know that people would like this? And it wasn't even all that well received, but they instantly greenlit a sequel. Things like that are just like, I don't understand what you're going for here. Majestic Demon, do you think the DCEU has stepped up a little bit with their films with good releases like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Shazam, and now Joker? Joker's not DCEU. It's DC, but it's not DCEU. DCEU is a specific continuity, and Joker's not in that continuity. I mean, I think it's tough to know exactly what's been going on. When I started my channel, it almost became it was a joke. January 2017. The first 6 months of 2017 was like a joke that every single week they announced a new thing. And they were going to do Green Lantern, and they were going to do Cyborg, and they were going to do Nightwing, and they were going to do Joker and Harley Quinn movie, and they were going to do a Harley Quinn Birds of Prey movie, and they were going to do a Joker standalone movie, and Justice League was going to be 2 parts. And then, the Batman was supposed to come out, this year, next year from Ben Affleck, and then he's only going to direct it, but he's not writing it. You had all these different things in rumors. I would love to see a documentary about what on earth was going on behind the scenes from 2013 to 2018 at WB talking about those movies. Because, it was just bonkers as to whatever was happening there. But I think that whenever they realized that Justice League was going to be a disaster, they went, we are not good at the shared universe game. We do not have the infrastructure, the leadership to do what the MCU is doing. Once this is done, we're going to start focusing in on just making it a good movie. And when they've done standalone movies, those are the ones that seem to be better received. And so then Wonder Woman, very well received. Aquaman, people thought it was too cartoonish, but it made a ton of money. It did really well at the box office and generally left people with a good taste. Shazam didn't do great at the box office. It also didn't cost as much, but people that did see it really enjoyed it. And then, of course, Joker, not being in DCU, but being somewhat in that same branch of things, of course, very well received, and doing great at the box office. So I think that they're sorting things out of how to better make movies and not chase after the success of Marvel so much. So it seems like they're heading in the right direction, and at least, the last year's been a good year for them in regards to the quality of what they've put out. It's been much, much better than it was before, at least better received than it was during 2016, 2017. So in general, I think that they're doing better stuff. Majestic Demon, I like your Michael Myers and Jason masks behind you. Oh, thank you. Both of them are the cheapest versions of these masks that I could get. I actually put mud on his face to make him look a little bit better, and even tried to do things with his hair to make it look better. I have a few more ideas how to thicken up his hair a little bit. And then this is, I need to get a better Jason mask because that's literally like a cheap one from Walgreens. My wife actually painted the actual official Jason stuff on there. And, obviously this isn't Jason. He doesn't have that type of grill there, but so I'm trying to fix it. But these ones are fun ones. This one doesn't stand up very well. I'm surprised it hasn't fallen over yet. But yeah, Jackson, I enjoyed your review of El Camino. Disappointing to me. I preferred the ambiguity over the conclusion we were given. Yeah, just such an odd movie to make 6 years later. I mean, it just kind of punted down the field a little bit. In its own way, it's just as ambiguous. It's just the ambiguity starts at a different point in time. It doesn't really give you an idea of, like, so what happened to him? I mean, you had this ambiguous ending, and then you have this one, but this one just feels a little bit more like less ambiguous. But is it that less ambiguous? Because this one seemed to imply everything that we got in this one. So it was kind of odd. Not poorly done, just an odd thing to decide to put out. So I don't know. All right, we are at the hour mark. I'll sit around for another 30 seconds to see if I get a final question. Otherwise, I'll close out and talk to you again. I believe next Saturday I should be back. There's a Comic-Con next weekend, so I might be at that. I'm not really sure. Maybe, is it next weekend? It might be further out. So, but I don't know. My November's looking super busy. Just tons of stuff, tons of new releases and things like that. So, hopefully I'll be here. I'll let you know otherwise, or I might reschedule just to a different time that works better. So, all right. See you next week. It's been fun talking movies too much.